Hello. So for the last part of my ArchiCAD Rhino Grasshopper research, I've looked at something called Ladybug Tools. It's an environmental analysis uh, plugin for Grasshopper. Also, there's one for Dynamo. And I don't remember if in the last video that I shared, if you watched that, the Graphisoft team used this to explain the connection tool at their conference when they did their big announcement. So it's a set of tools. Ladybug's the most basic of those tools. It's for conceptual design, early stage. It's meant for architects to use and not for environmental analysis professionals, let's say. That would be honeybee or butterfly, dragonfly, etc. These are more advanced tools, which can be used with ArchiCAD as well. But yeah, Ladybug's very, very popular. It's supported and used by a lot of educational institutions, as well as a lot of quite popular engineering and architecture firms these days. So yeah, I did research on how MMC could use this in their workflow. So this might be a bit long of a video, but if you're interested, I think it's a really useful tool. So I'm going to go back to this was the site generation Grasshopper file that we went through in the last video. And I'm actually going to, for this example, I'm going to use a location that everyone knows quite well, which is going to be the location of the MMC's office. So we'll open up this here. Okay, so we can see here that we've generated some site context for MMC's office. It's a lot of site context, so I'm actually going to go download a smaller file. So I'm just going to export that little area here. So I think I just click export, maybe manually select different area and drag it smaller and click export. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to save that. We went over this in the last video, so I'm not going to explain how it's done too much. So I'm going to go here now and set that new file to the small one. And where's my Rhino window? ArchiCAD window. There we go. So that's a lot better. Now I'm going to use Grasshopper to come over here and, well, first, we can connect this file. So we can go here and connect this ArchiCAD file like we did last time. Connect. Okay. And then we can just go in and choose what we want. So yes, I want this. So 1, 2, 3. It's probably good. Do I want the buildings? Yes. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And yes, I want the flat site. 1, 2, 3. I'm just counting because I can't really see what's going on because I'm recording on one screen, sorry. Do parking lots as well. Some parks, gardens, if there's any in that little area. Okay, that should be good. So I can minimize this, and yeah, if you zoom into ArchiCAD, you can see that it drew all that. I'm then going to go up here into interoperability again, and I'm going to break the connection. And like last time, I'm going to edit locking, unlock. Click yes, and everything's pretty accurate in terms of building height, except for BCI, which is definitely twice as high as this. So I'm just going to change it to something like that, and then just grab a node here and stretch it maybe to like there. And then we'll give it a nice white color. Okay, so this is our quick site generation for Brant Ave. And the office is, oh no, which one is it? I'm actually so confused. It can't be this. Streets Palace. Okay, so the office is actually this here, this building right there. So now I'm going to go back to Grasshopper, and we're going to open one of these Ladybug files that I created for MMMC to try out. So you can go, I'll put these in the server, but we're going to do like a wind analysis. So I'll open this up. Okay, so we've opened that file. It's got 3 sections. It has, each of the files have 3 sections. It has an initialize section which we'll open it. We'll click this button in a second, and I'll explain why. We have an ArchiCAD section. This turns the ArchiCAD geometry into Rhino geometry, and then we have the analysis section. First of all, what we need to do is open a weather file for our site. If you double click this button, it opens up a website that looks like this with lots of weather files from around the world. You can see they're like pretty much everywhere except for a few areas in certain countries, particularly Russia. They must not share it online, or they just have really bad weather forecasts. So for Brantford, our site is, okay, so Brantford's right here. So we're looking for the closest weather file to Brantford. I'm surprised that our airport doesn't have one, but I guess Cambridge doesn't either. Anyways, this one here is good, and you can just copy that link to the keyboard. That's the Hamilton Airport data. So, and then you can go back to here, and in this yellow box right there, you just paste that link. Yeah, then you can close the browser. You're done with that step. And then we can turn the ArchiCAD geometry into Rhino geometry. So to do that, I'm going to just open ArchiCAD in this separate window here. And first of all, we're going to select the massing. So we know, actually, we haven't even drawn anything yet. So what I'm going to do is actually delete MMC. Actually, let's use MMC as the mass. So we'll set we'll right click that button and click set one morph. Something didn't work. Oh, remember we have to start this connection. Now we can click set one morph. If you hover over it, you can see if it worked. It says it hasn't, so let's try it again. So we're going to use, because it's not a morph. This is looking for a morph. To change this MMC to a morph, we can right click and click convert to morph. And now we can right click this. Okay, click set one morph when this is selected. Now it worked. Okay, for roads, you can use find and select, right click and click select multiple morphs. And just to be sure, this is, okay, so see here, we're actually connected to that old Grasshopper file. So to change that, in your Grasshopper window, click Connect Document to ArchiCAD, and then find the one we're working on and click Connect. It's going to take a sec to load those two things that we just set. But now, like, if we click this, by the way, if we click this, then in ArchiCAD, it's getting highlighted. Same with this. So the last thing is context. So that's like all of our, I think I saved it, maybe not. Anyways, it's like all of this. So we can actually, I know that they're all, we could do a layer select. So layer is, and we can say it's existing buildings. And we just don't want the one that we already did. Okay, and now we can right click, set multiple slabs. Okay, now it's good. All the orange went away. And if we look in Rhino, you can see that everything here was brought into Rhino here. And MMFC's in white and it thinks that the little laneway, I'm going to delete the laneway because it thinks that it's a road, but it's not actually a road. So we can just go in. Okay, it's like all connected, so we can maybe split it. Here. Oops. Okay, I don't know what's going on. Give me 1 sec. Okay, the problem was I was using the trim tool by accident. So I'm just gonna like match the road here. And then as long as, okay, we gotta start this connection again. And now if we go back to Rhino, so here, let me minimize. I just took that road away. Should bring in this road though. Wonder why it's not. Let's select all the roads again, and then go back to Rhino, Grasshopper, roads, right click, set multiple, and then let's see. Because I want this one. I don't know why it's not bringing this in. Feel free to skip by this part of the video. Okay. I think what you have to do for an odd reason, let's go here, click clear values, so there's nothing. Go to ArchiCAD, select the roads, right click, and then set multiple roads. And then we should have, yeah, we have it like this now. Okay, so too bad we didn't like bring this context in, but I mean, you could spend more time getting the correct context if you wanted. Now let's create the windows diagram. So in Grasshopper, that weather file gives us a bunch of outputs, including dry bulb temperature, dew point temperature, wind speed, wind direction, radiation, luminance, etc. It's really great. You can manipulate that information however you like. Here in this component, we can set the analysis period between May and October. This is going to search for cross-ventilating winds. So we've done that here. And here I've created a conditional statement where A equals the wind speed and B equals the temperature in degrees Celsius and wind speed in meters per second. And this is like saying that when the wind speed is greater than 1 and the temperature is greater than 22, show me the data. You can change that to under 22 or greater than 20. It depends like when you think windows could be opened. So then you right click this and click enabled and just give it like a few moments to load, because it's now taking like hours and hours and hours of historical wind speed data, and it's creating a graphical representation of it overlaid on top of your site and with your building. So I don't know actually, because I haven't spent a lot of time at MMMC, where the wind direction comes from in the summer, but now we're going to see that it comes from, so in Rhino, get everything out of here, just open Rhino. Okay, so we can see that it mostly comes from the southwest, west to the south southern winds during those months, which is really interesting to note. And then here we can see that when the speed is greatest, the temperature is also quite hot as well, which is interesting. So it's probably from like storms. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video, and then this sort of file, you can manipulate it however you like to use it, like whatever you're trying to study. You can always go back into ArchiCAD and start playing around with the form of the building. You can change this as well, but for wind, that's not really going to make too many effects on the representation of that graph. So yeah, I'm going to pause the video and we'll try some other tools. Okay, this file here is a radiation study. So it shows which parts of the building are exposed to the most sunlight, or well, radiation, but we could plug in the temperature to be above a certain point to kind of show when it's actually sunny as well. So yeah, you don't have to worry about much of this. You just want to set that file again to where you're working from. And then you use the analysis period again. So I'm actually going to now analyze the entire year for MMC. And then, yeah, here we're bringing in, well, yeah, you don't really need to worry about any of this, really. We can now just go to the Rhino window and we can see MMC and how it's exposed. So, yeah, mainly the entire year, obviously the roof is the most exposed to the sunlight, followed by these two, the south facing and the sort of southwest facing wall. Yeah, and what's interesting about this is it actually is considering the context and the shade that context gives as well when making these calculations. So just to maybe try something a bit more complex, I'm going to turn off this for just a second, and then I'm going to go back to ArchiCAD, and it would be cool if we could, yeah, okay, so let's go back to ArchiCAD, so here, and I'm going to just turn on a preview of this so we can see what's going on. Okay, sorry, that's the wrong thing. It's really hard to do this all on one screen. The morph. So this, or this. Turn that on. So, oh, I scaled it. Okay, so, okay, so there's our building MMC, and then we can go to ArchiCAD, and then let's make some changes to MMC and make it like crazy. So let's bring this edge, let's bring it like out here, and I don't know, we can create a duplicate edge. I forget how you do that, but to bring a point, let's do something like this. Okay, so we have some like weird looking facade, and then let's like raise the back. Let's move it up. Okay, so let's say MMC looked like that. Or you get the idea, like it could be a lot more complex basically. So something further along in the design stage. Yeah, so if we did this correctly, then yeah, here in Rhino, all those changes are going to be updated. So now we have this like weird, it almost looks like a couch. And then we can go back to our Grasshopper window and then just re-enable this. It might take a second to load, but then if we minimize, we can see now based on that geometry what the building, the exposure to sunlight is, which is very, very helpful as well. So on something more complex, you're going to see more varieties of the legend. Okay. Something we could try that might be interesting is we can optimize the orientation of the building using this tool as well. So I'm going to go back here and just like, okay, so first I'll turn this back off. And then in ArchiCAD, I'm going to go back to like normal MMMC. So, okay, there we go. And that's good. Okay, so this section here is going to orient the building. It's going to test orientations every 10 degrees. You could do this every 1 degree if you're like really, really trying to optimize it, but it takes a lot of time. So we're just going to turn this on, and then we're going to turn this on, and now it's going to preview. It's going to show us, I might have to just turn some things off at the end. It's going to show us the optimal orientation of our building. So click enabled and click run the study. So ready? Okay, so this has apparently worked. Here we're seeing our regular orientation, and then here is the optimal orientation of the building. So just because it's annoying to see, we can turn it off. Yeah, so at this orientation, what we're actually optimizing for is, oops, it's not even there, but the most amount or the least, sorry, so the least amount of sunlight, of total radiation. So this is when the buildings, how the buildings should be oriented to be exposed to the least amount of solar radiation. You could change it so it's the most amount as well. I believe that's correct. So yeah, that's kind of cool to see. So if maybe MMC was built today and you wanted to optimize for radiation, then this is what it would be, how it would be orientated. And perhaps all the other buildings would be orientated this way as well. So that's kind of cool. I'll just go through maybe like a couple more examples because I know this is getting really, really long, but I did quite a bit of research on it. Okay, so let's open another file. Okay, here's a shadow study kind of script. So it's probably visually nicer and it's really easy to do this in ArchiCAD. And the accuracy in ArchiCAD is really good. I tested it compared to this. So anyways, this will give you shadow on a building very fast. So here, you just, in Grasshopper, this is what that file looks like. And if you zoom in on this section, you can just set the hour, the day, and the month. So today is like 30th, 31st. So we can set that to the 31st, and then the time is 54, so 11. So if we went to MMC right now, this second, the shadow would appear like this. And there's another way to visualize it as well. That's the fastest way to visualize it for creating animations or graphics. But you can also visualize it this way. So let's see how this looks. Okay. Okay, so what I've done here is actually created this is a sun dial, yes. It shows all the sun paths. So on the 31st of July at 11 o'clock, this is where the sun is located in the sky. and how it's falling down on the buildings below. If we switch this here, so if I go back to my file and turn on this button here, run a render version, and then if I go back to Rhino and I change the value here to rendered, then we can see kind of a more visually appealing version of the shadow. And of course, we could then go in and make this smaller. I'm going to bring this window over here. Bring that. You could go and change that value to something, say like this morning at 9 a.m. See where the shadow's at. So it's going to up there as well. Pretty cool. So that's the basics of the shadow study file, and it's super accurate. It's pulling the location, the exact location, the latitude and longitude for creating this. Again, you place your weather file here. So that's that, and I'll maybe show just a couple more. Okay, so the last example that I'm going to show, because there's a lot more, but I don't want to take too much time. So this is a sunlight analysis file. So again, this is all working the same. Again, you put your file in here, or you can type your location in here. And then we're setting an analysis period. So we're doing it for May to October, and I've added 2 extra pieces of information into this annually hourly data set. I've dragged the dry bulb temperature and the radiation. I'm going to use these values. So A is when the radiation is greater than 560, which is kind of I don't know radiation that well, but at this above this value. So if we look on the chart here, so you can see. Okay, so we can't see here, but radiation falls somewhere in the middle here. If this is a low amount of radiation, this is high, and this is 1,000 plus, and this is 0. So the 560 value is like, I don't know, like a sunburn. It's like it's not the best amount of radiation. Like this is when you'd want shade. So and when A is greater than 560 and B is greater than 22, B is the dry bulb temperature. So when the temperature is greater than 22, so kind of hot out. Those are the values when we're going to want shade. So in places on the building where shade is important. So yeah, this is visualizing that. So if we go back to here, we can see in 3D where on the building, so similar to the last one, obviously with the total amount of radiation, this part of the building and this part of the building require the most shade, whereas these areas barely require shade at all. It's also taking into consideration the surrounding context that you give it. And it's also, so we can go here and let's see what, we can also do that optimization study again. So we're going to optimize for the least amount of kind of like radiation and shade, etc., or then the most amount of shade. So yeah, I'm going to click this button here, and then it's going to run that analysis. Okay, so yeah, if we want to optimize for the most amount of shaded surfaces, this should be the orientation of the building of MMC. So if that was more important than radiation, so radiation is kind of, I think, I mean, you could change this actually so it's optimizing for the most amount of sunlight exposure, and that's kind of where you'd want to put solar panels if you're going to add solar panels. There's all sorts of tools in Ladybug that you can use to kind of do stuff like this. Yeah, if you want the most amount of surface exposed to shade, this is the orientation of the building that you should go with. If we go back to radiation and show that one, it was looking something a bit more like this. So yeah, somewhere in the middle there is kind of seems like a nice place for building orientation. And if it was oriented that way, you'd get the cross ventilation going this way. So the building obviously wouldn't look like this, but yeah, we'd plug in that other orientation. So yeah, that's pretty much a good overview of how you could use Ladybug Tools in MMC's workflow. I'm gonna save all of the files. So I have all of these files that I've created for different types of studies. So actually, I'm going to show this one here. This is going to be the last file. Okay, this is a graph explaining kind of like thermal comfort. The scientific term is a psychrometric chart. So the red area is the natural area of comfort at our site location during the year. So it's around 22 to 27 degrees with this amount of humidity. I don't know. Basically this area here. So the blue areas are things that we can add to the project to increase the natural thermal comfort. For instance, we can choose what activity is going on. So this is for sitting activity. This includes something called adaptive comfort, which is giving us a range of values for, it expects that people wear enough clothing to be able to take off different layers. And then we can also add different types of passive strategies. This is what shows up in blue. So we can say that we are going to add internal heat gain inside the building and fans. And by doing that, and by clicking any of these things, so like if we click this one, then it's going to generate a new chart for us based on adding evaporative cooling to the building. So yeah, it kind of expanded, I think, this lower value. So yeah, now we have like a ton of different, we have a huge range to work with without, actually it's including this range as well. So anything in here is what actually happens historically. Yeah, it includes a huge range of things of temperature to work within. If we add those passive strategies to the building without having to use natural energy, or sorry, not natural energy, but without having to add like certain types of using unnecessary energy. I haven't looked into this too much, obviously, but yeah, this is one of the kind of tools within Ladybug that you can use and read more about. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, and thank you. Let me know if you think it is, if there's something you'd like me to do more research on, or to help create a file for you to accomplish a certain task. It's not too hard for me to do that. Thank you.